Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
And it's time to delve back into Xanathar's Guide to Everything. This time we're talking about fighter subclasses, Arcane Archer, Samurai, and the Cavalier.
Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
As well as while you're down there, you can find a link to Xanathar's Guide to Everything in case you haven't gotten your copy yet. It helps support the channel as well.
So we're diving into fighter this time, and as always, there's the cool things in the beginning that have nothing to do with subclass that lets you build out your fighter a little bit more for RP.
Now, for you guys that have been around for a minute, the very opening quote is, "Let me know when you're all done talking, Tordak." So, if you're from 3rd edition, you know what that means. If you're new, well, you're just going to have to Google's it.
So the first thing is you get a heraldic sign. A lot of fighters, it says they champion a cause, and it might be you fight for a kingdom, you fight for a purpose, you fight, as that cause would be, and they say that a lot of fighters will wind up wearing that symbology somewhere on them. Could be a necklace, could be emblazoned upon a shield, and here's some things that you can work with if you don't want to make your own.
It could also be the symbol of the kingdom you're from or your family's heraldry. So there's a bunch of different things you could do with it. It's just another piece of flavor you could add to your character.
Absolutely. So, instructor, how were you trained? Did you get one-on-one type training, or were you more, en masse as a soldier kind of thing?
Yeah, they go through like a whole list, and obviously like all the other things, they have these tables. So if you just want to roll something randomly, but yeah, gladiator, military, city watch, tribal warrior, street fighter, weapon master.
So if you jump to the next page, you got a signature style, which is, what do you look like in combat? Are you stoic? Are you elegant? Are you brutal? However you want to look at it. This shows what you do in combat, and it can flavor how you RP. If out of combat you're jovial and happy, but once battle's in, like, you just become completely emotionless, and it's just brutal efficiency in your movements. I think it could be kind of cool to have that dichotomy going.
Yeah, your fighting style could reflect your personality, or, like you said, the dichotomy where it's completely opposed or the opposite of your normal, your normal persona. So you could use that to kind of flavor your character a little bit, add a little extra spice to your fighter.
So we move into the actual subclasses, the martial archetypes. We've got Arcane Archer, Cavalier, and Samurai.
Let's start right at the beginning with the Arcane Archer. They're going alphabetical.
So we got Arcane Archer, 3rd level. You learn magical theory of some secrets of nature. You get to choose whether you want proficiency in Arcana or Nature, and you choose either Prestidigitation or Druidcraft as a cantrip.
This has changed a bit because now, before you didn't get the cantrips. You only got the lore.
Well, that's a nice little bump. Get a free cantrip.
It is, except for you lost something else at 3rd level, which I will circle back to later.
So at 3rd level, you also get Arcane Shot. You can unleash special magical attacks with some of your arrows. You gain this feature. You learn 2 arcane shots of your choice. You learn more as you level up, and then once you get to 18th level, all of them become more powerful.
Right. Well, so here's the thing with Arcane Archer. This is the meat and potatoes of the class. It's fun. It's interesting. You generally you do a damage. You do some extra damage, and you also do
some kind of effect.
You don't. Most of the arrows you don't have to declare unless you hit with it first. So it's like you can wait for the opportune moment. Like, if you crit or something. There's all of that going for it. But the problem is you only get the 2 arrows per short rest until you hit the higher levels, and then you get a little bit of extra, but it's not much. So it feels a little underwhelming, because you get, like, if you compare it to the Battle Master seems to like never run out of superiority dice. He gets a bunch of those things.
That's true.
And here, now granted, when you're using the Battle Master, you're using 1 die at a time. But those dice, they increase, they get better as you go up. You can even take a feat and get an extra one and some more maneuvers. And, and they also come back after a short rest. Where here it's like, well, you're getting 2 dice at a time, but at the upper levels of your Arcane Archer and your your battle master? Does it still weigh out?
So I would say like the 7th, 10th, 15th, and 18th level, like beyond getting an extra option, you should get an extra shot.
You should get an extra arrow. Yeah, I don't think they're so overpowered that they're going to change the game compared to what the wizard's doing.
That's entirely true.
I mean, granted, yeah, you are an archer and you can let fly 3 more arrows in the round and do your normal damage, but it's still it feels a little less underwhelming, I think, than I don't know what the right number is, if it's 3 arrows or 4 arrows, per short rest. But I would have liked to seen a little bit more.
So what did we wind up losing at 3rd level?
So at third level, what we lost, we actually get it later. It's just not as good, and that is the magic arrow. So at 3rd level, you used to get a magic arrow. Your arrows were all considered magic, and they were +1 to hit and +1 to damage. Like if they left that in, that alone made it like, okay, you only get 2 special arrows per short rest, but all your arrows are magic and do extra damage.
Right. But so the 7th level, when you get the magic arrow, but they're just considered magic. You're not actually getting the +1 to hit damage.
Yeah. No frills, no thrills.
And it actually specifically spells out that the moment that it hits or winds up missing, they cease becoming magical at that.
They're magic arrows for you, essentially. They want to make sure you can't spread the wealth. Is what I gathered from it.
I just thought that was amusing. That it's like, oh well, you wound up having this little sentence thrown in there to be like, no abusing this power.
Oh, well, yeah, pretty much. They subtly put that in.
And then also at 7th level, you get Curving Shot, which I thought is pretty fantastic. You make an attack roll. If you miss, you can choose to have that continue and change direction and be able to hit anyone within 60 feet.
Yondu. You can do Yondu, essentially. Sort of. Yondu Light.
Yondu Light. So you get an extra attack out of it. Pretty cool. You do have to use your bonus action to make it happen, but hey, it's cool.
And then that brings us to that one is exactly the same. Matter of fact, most of the Arcane Archer has not changed. We've already seen their changes.
Right. So then we move on to the Ever Ready Shot, starting at 15th level. Your magical archery is available whenever battle starts. If you roll initiative and have no uses of Arcane Shot remaining, you regain 1 use of it. So you're getting a little bit more back. So you're guaranteed that at 15th level you've always got 1 when you start off combat.
Yeah. So I guess that makes it a little bit better. I don't know if it makes up for it or not. It really depends on what kind of game you're running to. Like in our games, it would be virtually useless because we don't do a lot of it. We do not do a lot of combats, and generally there's a rest in between. So you're gonna always have the 2 going into your next combat. So like it's actually a little bit better in our games. But someone that does a lot of encounters, then it's not going to be as good, for the first, 3 through 14 levels. And then beyond that, then you start to getting more of a return on it, because if you're doing a lot of combats, you're always going to get that 1 arrow. So per short rest, you might get a bunch of these arrows.
Right. So then lastly, we actually get into what the actual different shots are, and there is 1 per school of magic. So I like that they actually called that out. So you have Banishing Arrow, which allows you to basically whisk them away to the Feywild. This is the only one that doesn't do damage right off the start. Doesn't do damage actually until you get to 18th level. But if they fail their save, they're gone until the end of their initiative. So yay, great. Beguiling Arrow does an extra 2d6 psychic damage, and you have the chance to charm them, but it's not you. You're technically having them be charmed by one of your allies. So like it's actually a weird mechanic.
It's not. Well, it is, but it's not. Because in theory, you're the archer. You're not going to be near them.
That's true.
So it makes more sense that they're charmed to one of your allies, meaning which they're not going to attack them.
Right. Oh, yeah. I like the way it's done, but it's kind of weird that you shoot them and they're like your friend now. Bursting Arrow is kind of like a little mini fireball, except it's force damage. Everything within 10 feet takes 2d6 force damage. Again, it bumps at 18th level. Enfeebling Arrow, you weave necromantic energy into your arrow. The arrow does an extra 2d6 necrotic damage, and they make a saving throw or their weapon attacks are halved until they start the next turn. Grasping Arrow does 2d6 damage, and brambles come up and try to wrap around them. If they try to move, it's going to cause damage. Piercing Arrow is kind of cool because you kind of like have a line attack that you don't actually make attack rolls; they just make dex saves. Seeking Arrow is kind of that that Yondu thing, even more. You just say, that guy. You just pull it back, and as long as they're not behind total cover and they're within range, you hit them. They make a saving throw. If they pass, well, they take the damage. If they fail, they take all the damage, and you don't know where they are.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. It's got a bit of a flavor to it, and it's got a really long range on it as well. So, like you said, as long as they're not completely hidden, it's going to find them.
And then last but not least, Shadow Arrow. You weave illusion magic into your arrow, causing it to occlude your foe's vision. They take 2d6 psychic damage, and if they fail their save, they can't see past 5 feet.
So the other thing that's very important, I think, to bring up with this, it suffers a little bit from what the Eldritch Knight suffers from and that's you need another stat. Because you need intelligence. Because some of the other thing, and it's worse for the Arcane Archer than it is for the Eldritch Knight. The Eldritch Knight, you could do all buffs and things that don't really require saving throws or to hit rolls. With this, they all require saving throws. So it's going to be based off your intelligence modifier. So now, as a warrior character, you might need, you're going to want a good dex, a good con, and in this case, these guys, you're going to want a good intelligence as well. Unless you're going with, I'm the archer, I'm going to be in the back, and the idea is to not get hit and to not be there.
Yeah, so you could go dex intelligence and then con as your third. That's the Arcane Archer. It's pretty cool. It's not overpowered in any way, shape, or form, but it's definitely thematic. It's definitely got some cool options to play around with.
Yeah, like I said, my only concern with them is the fact that the cool stuff you're going to be out of relatively fast, and you're going to have to pick and choose when they use them.
Yeah, your first 2 rounds of combat. Okay, I'm done until I can rest again.
You can only use one per turn, so it's not like you could go nuclear for a round either.
So that brings us to the Cavalier. And before we get into Cavalier and Samurai, there is a little sidebar that says, with both Cavaliers and Samurai existed in the real world, our inspirations for both fighter archetypes are taken from popular culture, folktales, movies, and comic books, not from history. Our intent is to capture the cinematic, heroic elements of both archetypes in the game, rather than create an accurate historical representation of either one. I kind of thought that was cool and worth mentioning. So,
I think that might have been in Neon Arthurcana as well.
Okay.
It does not feel new to me, so I think it was there. But no, it's good to bring up. It's no, we're not going from historical facts. We're going to go with what's cool and fun.
Right. So you got the base concept, and beyond that, they're going to do what they think fits.
So Cavalier. So we start right off the bat with bonus proficiency. When you choose the archetype at 3rd level, you gain proficiency in one of the following skills of your choice: animal handling, history, insight, performance, or persuasion. Alternatively, you can learn one language of your choice. So I always think these are kind of cool for the fighter who doesn't get many proficiencies skills or languages and that kind of things. You can add that in there. So I like that. It's exactly the same.
So Born to the Saddle, this is where you basically have advantage to stay on your mount. And if you fall off and fall less than 10 feet, you land on your feet, as long as you're not incapacitated, It's yes, I'm knocked unconscious, I fall to the ground.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
I land on my feet. Oh, wait. So I thought that was kind of cool. Finally, mounting or dismounting a creature costs you only 5 feet of movement instead of half. It's good to see that reinforcement, there.
So we're already seeing with bonus proficiency and Born to the Saddle, they definitely get some things that says, oh, these guys are horsemen. They're accomplished. Okay, that's a Cavalier.
Absolutely. Unwavering Mark. You basically get to menace your foes and mark them. While it's within 5 feet of you, a creature marked by you has disadvantage on any attack rolls that doesn't target you. In addition, a creature marked by you deals damage to anyone other than you. You can make a special melee attack against the marked creature as a bonus action on your next turn. Regardless of the number of creatures you mark, you can make this special attack a number of times equal to your strength modifier, minimum once, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So that's a lot going on there.
Here's the thing with the Cavalier. The Cavalier is the most changed of the three. this ability didn't exist. It was superiority dice. I shouldn't say it didn't exist. It didn't exist within the Cavalier. It was part of the knight. One of the things they did is they took the Cavalier and the knight and they kind of mashed them together. One of the things Mike Morales had said was they found that people wanted the subclasses to have their own abilities, new abilities, and not just borrow off of the battle master. I concur. I agree. That was actually my biggest complaint with a lot of the subclasses that were using superiority dice. It was okay, but I just would have liked something more interesting. And
Like
that's
this.
what we, yeah, like this, and that's what we get, and that's a really good ability.
7th level, we got Warding Maneuver. You learn to fend off strikes directed at you, your mount, or other creatures nearby. You can basically, if you're hit, or someone is hit, within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction, take a D8 off, and you add the number to the target's AC against the attack. If the attack still hits, you wind up getting resistance to it, or the target gets resistance to it. So it's pretty nice that you can basically get in the way and help somebody out.
It makes me think of two things. One is in the Unearthed Arcana, the book, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, like one of the ideals that the Cavalier they upheld was they were kind of like defenders of people of lesser stature than themselves. So I kind of feel like it goes along with that. And then if you go back to Dungeons and Dragons, the cartoon, the Cavalier had the shield that he could use to protect himself or other people. So I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it's a really useful ability. When I compare the Cavalier to the Arcane Archer, I feel like the Cavalier has abilities it's going to use over and over again, and and it has more staying power so far.
Well, I mean, just that Warding Maneuver, I can use my reaction every round.
Well, exactly, and this is completely different because before we were using superiority dice, and it was completely different obviously, because before it enhanced the trip maneuver with superior dice, and it was called ferocious charger before, which we're going to see that very soon again anyway.
So Warding Maneuver, you can use a number of times equal to your Constitution modifier, minimum of 1, of course, and you get them back after a long rest. So if you've got a bumpy con, which most fighters wind up working because this is absolutely a melee guy, you're going to get up there, and that's 5 times a day that you can either potentially stop an attack, and if it does hit, it's going to take half damage. So very useful.
And they didn't use your favorite wording either.
What was my favorite wording?
Versus non-magical attacks.
Yeah, that's actually, that's definitely a good thing going on there.
So that brings us to Hold the Line. At 10th level, you become a master of locking down your enemies. Creatures provoke attack of opportunity. Sorry, guys, I can't talk. Creatures provoke an opportunity attack from you when they move 5 feet or more while within your reach, and you hit a creature with an opportunity attack. The target's speed is reduced to 0 until the end of the current turn. I felt this is a really strong ability. Literally, this is a good portion of the Sentinel feat.
Yes.
On the downside, it really is making it hard, taking the Sentinel feat a hard choice.
So it's like, is there enough in the feat to actually make you wind up going in that direction? If you do wind up using a reach weapon, playing a Cavalier, you've got the ability to stop people's movement just like you would with that Sentinel combo.
Lance is a reach weapon, and not only that, it is a reach weapon specifically historically tied to the Cavalier.
That's true.
So I think they saw that, So I think that was kind of maybe the idea. Hold the Line, it was tied to superiority dice before, and it was called something else before, so it's completely changed.
So now we go to 15th level. You get Ferocious Charger. You can run down your foes whether you're mounted or not. If you move at least 10 feet in a straight line, and you make an attack, if you hit, they make a saving throw or be knocked prone. It's as you would expect, DC 8 plus your proficiency modifier plus strength. You can use this feature once per turn.
And, this is basically used to be the 7th level ability. It was tied to making trip attacks before and your superiority dice. So, new ability, new level, shifted it. I actually, so far, I'm like really digging the Cavalier and the changes they made.
I'm liking it as well. Starting at 18th level, you get Vigilant Defender. You respond to danger with an extraordinary vigilance. In combat, you get a special reaction that you can take on every creature's turn except your own. You can use this special reaction only to make an opportunity attack, and you can't use it on the same turn that you take your normal reaction.
This
normal
one's
action. So like
this is a big deal.
This really is all right. You tie that to the ability of someone moving around you. Every time somebody moves around you, you can make an opportunity attack and potentially stop them.
Now, stopping them costs, but no matter what, you still get to attack them.
Yes.
So that that part is really cool. So you virtually have unlimited number of attacks depending on how many things move around you. So you're talking about a fighter that's getting 4 attacks around. Say he fights with a halberd or glaive or something like that. Anybody moves within that 10-foot radius of him, you know he has the ability to attack them all. Forget the fact that he may or may not use the warding maneuver, but you get to do that. Also, I believe the unwavering mark is going to come into play as well once you start marking different enemies, and you have that you have that ability as well.
So that's going to be pretty ridiculous. So once you get up there, this is the kind of guy who's like, all right, I'm going to get into a group of adversaries. Somebody's going to make them run towards me, and then I'm just going to mow them all down.
Yeah, pretty much. Or if they try and escape or whatever. But that's what you are. You're just a mobile Ginsu. This is a completely new ability. Before it was just increasing your superiority dice.
Yeah, much better choice. I think this is gonna have some shining moments. Later in the in the game. So you got to be 18th level to get to it, and it's good to see every so often you get these things that really pushes this character into like the epic proportions. That's what I like seeing at those high level abilities.
Right. I mean, even if you're not doing enough damage to drop enemies, you're still damaging them. So you've just taken the fighter, which has always historically been second fiddle to the wizard because of their ability to lay down damage on the battlefield. Like they may be able to hurt one thing. But like this is an example of this fighter having the opportunity to literally be able to attack maybe like 10 things in a round.
It really it's up to the DM how many things
move
you're going to put on the battlefield, and it's going to be silly enough to charge by him. I'm envisioning all kinds of craziness of just slaughtering kobolds and goblins by the horde.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, hey, you already get 4 attacks. You already have the thing where you can use for your reaction. That's a 5th attack. And then you're going, you know what? If you're using a reach weapon, that's 16 squares around you, basically, you can reach. So, getting 10 shouldn't be that hard under the right circumstances.
Right.
And, as a GM, I feel like you should definitely give that opportunity from time to time.
Oh, yeah. I as that kind of character, I'd be looking for, like, how can I increase my reach more?
Yeah.
Can I get
be like a bugbear?
Can I get a bugbear? Can I get, like, the enlarged spell going on? Does that work? All these little things I'd be looking at.
Off the top of my head, the only thing I think of is the bugbear. But that would give you a 15-foot around you with a reach weapon. And, I would have to count the squares, but I don't know if that's still just... If it just adds another 8 or whatever, I don't think so. I'd have to look at the grid to math that out. But even if you say it only adds another 8, well, then you're now threatening, what is that, 24 squares?
I think it's close to that, yeah.
Just off the top of my head. So that is going to create a lot of opportunities for this character to do stuff like that. Bugbear Cavaliers, people, you heard it here.
You heard it here first. Samurai. So just like the Cavalier, you're going to get some bonus proficiencies. You can choose between history, insight, performance, persuasion, or get a language. You get one of them. Cool thing to add. And if you don't already have persuasion, you want to choose persuasion because that's what these guys are meant to do.
Yeah, and this is a new ability for them.
So you also get fighting spirit. Your intensity in battle can shield you and help you strike true. As a bonus action on your turn, you can give yourself advantage on a weapon attack rolls until the end of the current turn. When you do so, you also gain 5 temporary hit points. That number becomes 10 at 10th, 15 at 15th. You can use this 3 times and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. I kind of thought this was weird that it's just a set number where like typically everything is tied to a stat. So I would have liked to say, oh, well, is this a strength thing? Is this a con thing?
Something you can increase?
Yeah. So
well, it's changed, too. Like, one, it used to be short or long rest that would recharge. Now it's just a long rest. I think Samurai was really good on Arthurcana. And I've heard the stories of people abusing the F out of it, or couldn't wait to abuse the F out of it, and thinking of ways to abuse the out of it. But this has changed significantly in several ways. One, it used to be resistance to damage instead of temporary hit points. And the other thing was it was short rest, long rest mechanic as well.
So giving yourself advantage as a bonus action is really a good thing. And getting this at third level, you could technically link that with, because you get it so early, you could link that to other class abilities that could wind up being really advantageous.
Yeah, well, and that's why some of the fighting spirit changes have been made too, is because of some of that later stuff, I believe, and why it's just only 3 times.
Right.
Because people are like, no, this is ridiculous at high levels.
At 7th level, you get Elegant Courtier. Basically, this is what's going to give you, expertise on charisma persuasion checks. Sorry, not expertise. You get your wisdom modifier added to your charisma persuasion checks. And you also gain proficiency in wisdom saving throws. If you already have it, go ahead and add intelligence or charisma.
So it's really cool. It's similar, but it's a bit different. They used to get their bonus proficiency here before, and also the bonus to making that check was defined a little bit more and was more specific, like it was dealing with nobility, where they kind of called it out. Where here it's just a blanket. Oh, you're just better at persuasion.
I think that was a good call.
It makes it easier if you're not having to worry about abdicating it. And then also, you did not get your wisdom save at this level. You got it later.
Well, that it's nice. I like seeing classes getting extra saving throws because there's not a whole lot of that goes around.
Well, and if you think about it too, when you're looking at your bruiser characters, like, oh, that's the best one to try and go after their mennos because they're strong and powerful. Let me turn them against the party.
Yeah, they're strong, they're powerful. They usually have a good con and a good deck, so their Constitution saves and their Dexterity saves are going to be pretty good. But Wisdom, who knows? 10th level, we get Tireless Spirit. When you roll initiative and have no uses of Fighting Spirit remaining, you regain 1 use. So you are linking back to that, being able to get that again, even if you don't have them. Similar to the way the Arcane Archer. The Arcane Archer had to wait till 15th level in order to get that, whereas the Samurai gets it at 10th. So they're going to get it that much sooner. And the Samurai starts off with 3 as opposed to 2.
Well, there's that. But, all right. That being said, in defense of the Arcane Archer, they get theirs back after a short rest.
That's true.
These guys have to wait a long rest. So, I mean, if that balances the scales any, I don't know. But that's that. And before, this is where you used to get your wisdom saving throw previously. Instead, you get a new ability. This is way better this way.
15th level, you get Rapid Strike. You learn to trade accuracy for swift strikes. If you take an attack action and you have advantage, like as if I used my bonus action to give it to me, I can trade that advantage to making another attack.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. It's going to go along with that early ability. Now, I believe this one has changed too. Yeah, now it's just you get it once per turn. You still have to use that bonus action.
So I'm going to use my bonus action to give me advantage if I don't already have it. And then I will trade off one of my advantage attacks to getting an extra attack. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, but before it used to be worse. Well, not worse, but better. Worse for the GM, and that's why some of these changes were made, I believe. Because that's where one of the places where you can abuse it. You're a fighter with 4 attacks that now all have advantage. You're like, yeah, I'll just get rid of advantage and attack 8 times. Wait a minute, let me action surge as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much why.
I'll make 16 attacks this round.
Yes. And that used to really tie in even deeper to the last ability that they get.
So this brings us to our final feature, and that's Strength Before Death. So when you take damage that brings you to 0, you can immediately stop everything right there and take another turn, interrupting everything, and you get it all. You can move, you can attack, you can use a bonus action. And I think this is what you were saying off camera about that. This is where everything boils down to, where it's like, all right, I'm going to blow everything I can possibly do right here to try and drop the thing that is dropping me.
Yeah, and it used to be even better. in a sense, because now, okay, so you're at 0 hit points. You're technically dying, and every hit affects you just as it would if you were down, right? So it'd be two hits and you're dead, essentially,
Right.
because from death saves. Well, before it interrupted before you actually took the damage, and then you got this free turn, then you took the damage. So, one is you could give yourself resistance and actually reduce the damage, possibly not even getting dropped. And then two is, the idea that you could go absolutely nuclear with this extra turn. When you look at Rapid Strike, the way it used to work before, where you could turn all your advantages into extra attacks, and if you still have Action Surge, you could Action Surge. Like, it becomes absurd because 4 becomes 8 attacks, 8 becomes 16 attacks. You become a whirlwind of doom.
So it's utterly crazy. I definitely like what they've done, mitigating some of that ridiculous possibilities. But definitely a strong build. Of the three, I would say that the Arcane Archer is the weakest.
Yeah, I agree. They're all flavorful. They're all kind of cool.
They're all fun to play. Just the power packed into the levels.
Now, I've definitely seen like chatter on the interwebs of people grumbling, go figure, about the Cavalier. They ruined the Cavalier now. But I like what they did with the Cavalier, and it's like, oh, you're not just going into you're not useless when you go to a dungeon now because all your stuff is based around riding a horse,
right, or a goat,
or a whatever. You're just you just get a slightly better, and you're better at doing those things. But if it's not there, it's hardly noticeable.
So that brings us to the last thing that we typically talk about with these guys, and that's how would you wind up using these things as villainous options?
Well, okay, Arcane Archer. Typically, this is an elven style of fighting and tradition, but it is gotten out. Other people have learned it. What about an elf hunter that's an Arcane Archer?
That'd be pretty fun.
Whether they're human, dark elf, or some kind of goblinoid or orc or something, but they've learned and mastered the art of arcane archery, and now they use it to hunt elves. You could kind of do this as a little bit of a murder mystery at first, and it's a great red herring where you're like, why is this elf murdering other elves? Like, you could totally allude to it being an arcane archer, and when you research it, normally pretty much all the arcane archers are just elves. And let the players draw their own conclusions, and then at the end you have this opportunity to maybe reveal a character that is completely different. Also, worth bringing up too is the idea of an arcane archer not actually being an archer with a bow. You could do it with a crossbow or something else. It doesn't call it out in here, but when on the UA someone had asked, Mike Merle's response was simply, it wouldn't be a problem to do it. It's just we didn't think of it. It just slipped our mind, essentially.
Now, you can go and you can make these really cool, interesting NPCs to have that red herring. You could literally, though, just drop one of these into a combat because they have some unique and interesting abilities, and you want to use them against the party. I think it could be a lot of fun. You could wind up having this as, you could use this as someone who's hunting the players for whatever reason. Perhaps it's a rival that has caused based on some other activities that they've done, and it's out there lurking in the woods, and it just wants to cause someone in the party pain. So it keeps using the divining one to shoot and just strike. It's like, okay, he knows where you are, but you don't know where they are because they might have fired from a different direction.
And they just have to encounter you at some point.
Yes.
But I think there's a time limit on it, so that might be a little tricky, like in a minute or so. So they could stalk you, wait 45 seconds, and then let fire, and then at that point you have no idea where you're getting hit from.
45 seconds is a number. That's plenty of rounds for them to have gotten a considerable distance away.
Or if they're using something to scry you or something like that. So that there's definitely some fun things you could do with that. Also, if you really want to make this character a terror for them and make them some kind of hired hand, make them an assassin. Literally, you do not lose much from from losing levels of Arcane Archer. But if you add like levels of Assassin to this, the amount of damage you're going to get, especially with that arrow, like yeah, I would say that's a surprise attack.
Yeah, absolutely. So auto crit on top of sneak attack.
Yeah, you just got to be patient, and you're getting nailed by like a ballista.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so Arcane Archer, yeah, you can definitely have some fun with these guys as a villain.
So I think that's something that we're gonna wind up seeing at some point in time, or hearing that talk throughout the interwebs. Good combo.
Dark Cavalier. In previous editions, Cavaliers did not have to be good. They had to be lawful, and they had to live by a certain code of conduct. Now, granted, this is not quite the same, but you could play the Dark Cavalier the same way. They could be a champion for an evil lord.
So you basically you've got an evil lord, an evil paladin, an evil necromancer. So like I could totally see this guy riding like a nightmare at the front of a undead horde.
Yeah, he could essentially be the evil general, even if he's not the guy in charge. But he could be the military mastermind.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun to use, but you could take this in any different direction. You could go undead. You could have this be any kind of monstrous humanoid that wants to use a mount. We've already talked about how crazy putting a bugbear as a cavalier could be once you get to the higher levels. So I definitely see that as an option that's going to be out there.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to do something with the bugbear, just because that'd be very terrifying. That'd be a wicked surprise for your party when all the melee combatants rush the bugbear, and he's using a glaive or something, and he just tags them all on their way in.
Stop. But what?
Yeah, it'd be kind of a jerk move, but I'm all about that for some
Well,
reason.
every once in a while, you want to do these kind of things because the rules are out there, because the options are out there, and the players are going to use the tactics that they have, spells and class abilities against you. If you don't do the same thing, it's kind of like you're playing with half a deck.
Exactly. So that brings us up to the samurai. Well, traditionally the samurai we just serve different lords, right? So with that, that one is kind of easy if you're kind of playing off of that tradition. You could just be opposed to whoever they're working for, and that makes it really easy. Or you like go watch Kung Fu theater, the old Kung Fu theater movies, and there are tons of tropes in there that you could borrow from.
You've got a rival lord, and the two factions are at war. Well, this is the guy who defends the general, defends the lord, and all right, well maybe the lord's a pansy, but this dude is who you really have to be able to take down, and he's a potential nightmare.
Or what about the swordsmaster that just goes around defeating other swordsmen? Like that's all he lives for is humiliating and killing these other swordsmen to prove that he's the best. All right, and maybe it's gone too far. Maybe he does things that are kind of distasteful to entice others to fight him. So and that's also like pretty tropey, kung fu movies, 80 movies, that kind of stuff. But just because it's trope doesn't mean it isn't fun.
Very true. So, what do you guys think? How do you guys appreciate these three classes? Anyone playing them in their games yet? Put your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can hang out with us over on Facebook.
So until next time, stay nerdy.